Let's be honest. Most of us are really good at spotting mistakes, but not nearly as intentional about catching people doing things right. And even when we do, it's often a vague good job or some other well meaning, but not so helpful compliment. I've been there too. It's easy to just throw out something quick and move on, especially because there's just so much to do. There's so much on our plates. But this matters. If we want to build strong, healthy teams, we've got to get better at showing people exactly what worked and why it mattered. So today, we're getting into some practical ways that you can train yourself to notice the good stuff, and three specific ways to use those moments to coach your team so that they can keep doing more of what's working. And friend, this is simple. This is doable stuff that you can start using right away. And the good part, it makes a real difference. So let's jump in. Now, I'm going to say something that might surprise you. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Most things in your organization are going pretty well. I mean it. I don't even have to know your organization, and I can know that most things are going pretty well. But it might not feel like that to you, right? And that's because our brains, they're just not wired to see the good stuff first. So there's this thing called the negativity bias, and it basically means we're wired to spot the problems. We notice what's wrong way faster than we notice what's right. And so, that instinct, it's super helpful if you're trying to survive in the wild, not so helpful when you're trying to lead a team. So even if most of your team is showing up and doing fantastic work, even if the majority of your projects are moving forward, and even if the culture in your workplace is overall positive, you might still feel like something's off. And that's because your brain is zooming in on the few things that aren't working. But here's the reality. In most healthy organizations, like yours, 70 to 90% of things are going just fine. And it's that last 10 to 30% that is screaming for your attention. So what do? Right? What do? We end up spending almost all of our mental energy on what's not working because that's what feels messy. That's what feels urgent. That's what's loud. And now I'm not saying that we should ignore those things, ignore those problems, but I am saying we have to work a little harder to notice what's working too. So I'm no math whiz, but those numbers, those stats, they have to shift in our favor if people start replicating what's already going well because we are pointing out what's going well and learning how to capitalize on it. So all three of my kids have gone through this stage around like the age of 4, where they start to really care about the quality of their artwork. So suddenly they have this self awareness about how their artwork actually looks. And they just become this critic of themselves. And so it always happens like this. They're working so hard, they're doing so well, and then they make the tiniest little mistake. And they get so frustrated and they crumple up the paper and they throw it and they get mad and they decide they're going to quit. And it doesn't matter that the whole entire thing leading up to that tiny mistake was so good. They can only focus on the mistake and it discredits their entire picture altogether. Friend, we do this. Not only to our own work, but we do it to the work of our whole team. So the first thing we need to figure out is how do we wipe off our negativity bias and actually see what is in front of us clearly? If we know this doesn't come naturally, then we have to put something intentional into place, some practices into place to actually see what's happening that is good. So, I have a few super practical tips to do this, okay? These are really easy, really practical ways where we can wipe off that negativity bias and do a better job at just simply seeing what's good in front of us. So, first is to try a simple wins log. Okay, so at the end of each day, maybe even just at the end of each week, you're going to jot down one win and who was responsible. Just one. And this does not need to be fancy. We're talking a sticky note. We're talking a Google Doc, your notes app on your phone. Okay, whatever works. The point is, you're training your brain to pay attention to what's going right. And when you go back and look at it each week, like week after week, you're going to start to see patterns. You're going to start to see what's working. you're going to start to see who's quietly crushing it. Okay, second is to just slow down. This is like the simplest tip I've ever given. Slow down and watch. It's so simple, so powerful. But as leaders, what are you doing? You're multitasking, right? We're planning ahead. We're jumping from one thing to the next. But if you can just pause, like intentionally stop during a meeting, during the workday, let's say 5 to 10 minutes, and just intentionally observe, you'll start to notice things. You're going to start seeing who's stepping up. You're going to notice who's collaborating well, who's solving problems behind the scenes. So just give yourself permission in the day to just notice, to stop, look around, and see what's happening. And you might be surprised with what you see. Third is ask your team what's working. Seriously, like just ask your team. You don't have to figure this all out on your own. So in a team meeting or in a check-in, just try asking a question like, who helped you out this week? Or whose work made an impact on you this week? And their answers will help you see what you have probably missed. And the cool thing is, by asking the question, it will help your team to start seeing each other's wins more clearly too. And a final tip, this is just for on your commute home. You're going to ask yourself, what worked well today? Who helped make it happen? And this is how we train our brains to spot greatness in the everyday moments, by just making reflection a habit. And so I want to be clear, this isn't like your wins log. That's very much a tracking of wins. This is just an exercise for habit building, right? To be thinking about it. So if the power company didn't shut off the lights, if you did not get evicted from your space, if you were able to pay your people this week, it is because good things are happening and people on your team are working to make those good things happen. So this is just a practice of recognizing it. On your commute home, you're just going to ask yourself those questions. What worked today and why? Who was responsible for that? So this week, just push yourself to see what's happening around you more clearly and start writing it down. Start asking for more information on what is going well. And let's just build that habit up really strong so that we can move on to the most powerful part of catching people doing things right, which is celebrating it and replicating it. I grew up doing musical theater, and honestly, I can't remember a time when I wasn't in a dance class, where I wasn't rehearsing for a play, where I wasn't singing at a concert. I was that little girl, the one who auditioned for every production of Annie that I could find. I was in 3 productions of it, by the way. And I'm totally fine never being in a production of Annie again. Honestly, I'm totally fine never seeing a production of Annie again. But there's one memory I'll never forget in my childhood growing up doing musical theater. I was probably in 3rd or 4th grade, I think, and I was in this production of The Pied Piper. I didn't even have a speaking role, but after one of the rehearsals, the director, Thomas, pulled me aside. He told me that he loved my stage presence and the way I used my facial expressions in the Tony Award-winning role of townsperson number 14. Now, as you can imagine, my character didn't actually do anything to move the plot forward, but this director noticed something that he thought I was doing well. And what do you think I did from that moment on? 3rd grade, 4th grade Kara. Yep, you better believe it. I turned up the drama immediately. The director probably fully regretted his comments because townsperson number 14 was basically giving Broadway level energy. So I doubled down on what I had been doing quietly in the background. Why? Because someone saw it. They named it and told me that it mattered. And that's the thing. When we name something good in someone's work, something specific, they want to keep doing it. They want to lean in more, and they might even amplify it in ways that make a bigger difference for your team, for your company, for your mission, for your client. So that little moment of clear, specific recognition of what's good, it becomes a permission slip to just keep doing it. Okay, let's put this into some daily practical application, because if you've been listening for any length of time to my podcast, you know I want to give you the exact steps. So let's say that you're walking through your office on a typical Tuesday, you're scrolling through your Slack channel, and you notice something great. Jen, your team member, She took initiative early on in a project. She didn't wait to be asked. What she did was she saw what needed to be done and stepped up and just did it. And because of that, the team avoided a potential delay, hit a tight deadline, right? Amazing. This is what we hope for. So instead of just saying thank you or great job, which are good things to say, you're going to capitalize on catching her doing something right by coaching. And so I'm going to show you 3 simple, powerful kinds of coaching. And before I jump into those, I have to give you a resource that will make all the difference as you begin coaching your team more regularly. The Free to Lead workshop is a free on-demand training. You can go listen to it anytime. It helps you identify the areas your specific team needs coaching from you. And it gives you this easy strategy that you can use this week. You can use today to grow your team and find the freedom that you're looking for. You want to know why? Because you need to spend less time in the weeds and more time doing the things you want to be doing, you need to be doing as a leader. So go to heycarolist.com/workshop or grab the link in the show notes. Okay, so back to our 3 simple but powerful kinds of coaching. You ready for it? Here we go. Coaching for connection, coaching for development, and coaching for culture building. So to coach for connection, you thank them not just for doing the task, but for how they showed up. You thank them for the impact their work has on the team. And this connection you're making to their contribution is exactly what makes people feel seen. So you say to Jen, hey, Jen, the way you stepped in early on that project showed real ownership. And honestly, it helped the whole team stay on track. How did you know we needed more time for this project? So did you see how that works? That kind of feedback tells them exactly what they did right, why it mattered, and gives them a chance to reflect or process. And that's the stuff that gets repeated. And not just because Jen wants praise, but because Jen wants to contribute. She wants to have an impact, right? And I mean, isn't that what you want to? So the next thing you can do is to coach for development. And this is where it gets really exciting. Oh, I love this. Because most people, they don't actually know what they're good at. I mean it. They don't. And especially if they've been told over and over again what they've messed up on, they might not feel strong at all in what they bring to the table, what their strengths are. So when you give specific praise, you are helping them name something about themselves that they might have not seen before. You're putting words to their strengths. So you might say, Jen, the way you anticipated the time the team would need, that showed how dependable, proactive, and supportive you are. That's a huge asset to this team. And then maybe you'd follow it up with something like, is this something you've always been able to do? And you've just helped them see themselves more clearly, and you gave them the space to reflect on their own strengths. That's a big deal. See, it's not just encouragement. This is equipping your team. This is empowering your team. Okay, and finally, let's talk about coaching for culture building. Every time we call out what's going well, especially when we tie it to our team's values, we're doing something super important. We are saying, this is who we are here. So when you say, Jen, that was a great example of how we prioritize our work around here collaboratively and with initiative. What you're doing is you're connecting the dots between Jen's behavior and your culture. And you're helping everyone see this isn't just a random good moment. This is what we're about. And one more step here, because this is where praise really becomes coaching. After you've named what went well and helped them reflect on how they did it, you ask, what made you decide to step in like that? What do you think made it work so well? Or what would you do differently next time? And that reflection is what takes this from just a feel-good moment, which, hey, we all love a feel-good moment, but it's what takes it to a truly formative moment. Now, if all of that sounds like too much, maybe you're like, that sounds way too formal. That's not going to feel right when I say it. Or it's too much for me to remember. I'm just going to summarize it for you, okay? I'm going to put it in a little rhythm just to tuck away in your back pocket. So here we go. See, share, reflect. I know. You wanted a third S, didn't you? I'm so sorry to disappoint. I couldn't come up with them. So see, share, reflect. See what went well. That's our first one, C. Be clear about what you saw. You're just saying it. The next is share. Share the strength, the value, or the character trait you saw. Tie it to their impact or their strengths or your culture, just like we've talked about. And then last, invite them to reflect on it. Reflect. Ask good questions to help them think back to what they did to get those results. That's it. Did you see how important it is to catch people doing what is right? Do you see how easy it is to do more than just say good job? And friend, can you imagine what your workplace would look like if this was one of your personal leadership habits? So, what are you going to do? Go out and try it this week, my friend. Be the leader who sees what's good and says it out loud. And your team will feel it and they will rise to meet it. And for this kind of thing, you don't need a big fancy budget. You don't need a big fancy system. You just need to train your eyes to see the good, your words to speak it out loud, and your leadership to coach it, to move it forward. And this is the stuff that makes you a leader that's different, a leader that people want to keep working for, a leader people want to keep learning from. And you're that leader. You've got this. So don't forget to go grab that free training at heycarolist.com/workshop. And friend, let's keep building the kind of culture that catches people doing things right and makes it impossible for them not to thrive. Okay, thanks for being here. And until next time, you know it, I'm cheering you on. Bye.